The American colonists engaged in the American Revolution and won their independence. However, they had the help of many foreigners. George Washington was only an officer in the Virginia militia during the French and Indian Wars. He did not have the military experience to fight the British on equal footing. So he depended on the volunteers who were recruited by Benjamin Franklin in Europe. Here we have a woodcut from the German language newspaper, the New Yorker Kriminalzeitung in the 1800s, showing Die Helden der Revolution, the heroes of the revolution. First we have George Washington, and of course, since the paper is German, we have two German heroes first, de Kalb and von Steuben. Interestingly enough, they are followed by Pulaski and Kościuszko. And rounding out is Lafayette and Muhlenberg, another German hero of the American Revolution. The interesting thing that we do know is that according to most reports, Pulaski and Kościuszko never met in America. Pulaski fought in the central states until he went down south and was killed at Savannah. Kościuszko was delegated to fight in the armies of the north and did not go south until after the death of Pulaski. In 1826, a group of cadets raised a column in honor of Kościuszko at the American Military Academy located at West Point, which Kościuszko had fortified during the Revolutionary War. It was called the Gibraltar of North America. The cadets put it in a place called Kościuszko's Garden, because this is a place that after his hard work building and planning the fortifications at West Point, he would relax. In 1913, the Polish community put a metal statue on top of the column. The young republic decided to honor its heroes and commanders. They formed the Society of the Cincinnati. According to Roman legend, Cincinnatus was a farmer who, when Rome was invaded, left his plow and became the dictator of Rome. He led the Roman forces in a victory, and instead of fulfilling the rest of his term as dictator, 6 months, he returned to the plow and continued on in his civilian life. Kościuszko is one of the few foreigners honored by the Order of the Cincinnati, and he's the only non-Frenchman so honored. Later portraits of Kościuszko show him wearing both the Order of the Cincinnati and the Polish medal Virtuti Militari. Military medals are the purview of generals and governments. The people of the United States, however, honored Kościuszko in their own separate way. There are 3 towns that were named in honor of our hero. Probably the most famous one is Kościuszko, Mississippi, which is the hometown of Oprah Winfrey. There's also a Kościuszko County in Indiana, and Warsaw is its county seat. And there was a Kościuszko, Texas. Of course, by that time, Poles had started arriving in Texas. Also in the 1860s, when America had purchased Alaska, there was an island named in honor of Kościuszko. Of course, I won't mention the various parks, highways, and bridges that were named in honor of our hero. Many organizations use the name Kościuszko, such as the Society of Ułans, under the patronage of Tadeusz Kościuszko, founded in 1896, and it still participates in Polish ceremonies in Chicago. Even the oldest Polish parade, the parade of the 3rd of May in Chicago, which was created on the anniversary of the Constitution of 1791, has connections with Kościuszko, the defender of the Constitution, which according to the tradition fought in 1791 in his American uniform. For many years, the parade that went through the northern side of the city to Humboldt Parks, where from 1905 to the 1970s stood the Kościuszko Monument. I mentioned the monument, which was a symbol for generations of our compatriots in Chicago, but this was not the only one. When Poland was under the partitions, Polonia erected 6 monuments in honor of the American general and the Polish supreme leader. The first 2 decades of the 20th century were the peak of the construction and dedication of Kościuszko monuments. The first monument was erected in Cleveland, Ohio. The hero in Polish uniform was presented on foot. The sculptor was the Italian Gaetano Trentanove, who came to the U.S. thanks to an acquaintance from his student years. In 1904, Trentanove placed the monument of Kościuszko in Cleveland and later an equestrian monument in Milwaukee. Kościuszko's monument in Milwaukee was originally built in the park named for Kościuszko and now is in the park near the Basilica of St. Josephat. Milwaukee, Polonia raised funds for the restoration of the monument. Chicago, as the center of the Polish community in North America, began to raise funds for a statue already with the 1893 Columbian Exposition. We know that Maestro Paderewski left $500 as a start for the fund to raise a statue. In 1904, a Polish sculptor, Kazimierz Chodziński, put the statue in Humboldt Park. Humboldt Park was the center of the Polish community on the north side. Little did Paderewski know that his contribution back in 1893 would also bring him to Chicago and to Humboldt Park to speak in front of the statue of Kościuszko many, many times. He would ask for help for Poland. He would ask for money for Poland. He would ask the young sons of Polonia to join the Polish army in France, so that this statue became the center point of the Polish community in the 1900s. I remember as a young boy taking part in parades going from the old Polish downtown of Milwaukee, Ashland and Division, south on Ashland, westbound on Augusta, and then coming up Sacramento, passing, interestingly enough, the statue of Leif Erikson to get to the reviewing stand, which was located by the statue of Kościuszko. Now, it's an odd thing that can only happen in America. A few weeks later, the Norwegian community would have their large parade honoring Leif Erikson, the Viking who discovered America or explored America before Columbus. So in May, we would march in front of Eriksson's statue to get to Kościuszko, and the Norwegians would march in front of Kościuszko's statue to get to the Leif Erikson, only in America. With the change in demographics in the 1970s, the Humboldt Park area lost its Polish population, and the city moved the statue to the lakeshore. In fact, it was placed on what is called now Solidarity Boulevard. The statue joined the large copy of the Warsaw statue of Nicholas Copernicus standing in front of the Adler Planetarium, and the joke was that Kościuszko was moved so that he could defend Copernicus in front of the Adler Planetarium. The United States House of Representatives created a resolution on April 2nd, 1904, number 84 of the 58th session of Congress, which said that Tadeusz Kościuszko Monument would be placed by and on the cost of Polish-American organizations and the Polish-American people. In late 1905, the committee announced a contest which would be only open to Polish sculptures. They asked that the sculpture models be sent to Washington, D.C. There were 20 models sent in, and the Polish Museum of America is fortunate in that we have one of the models that was sent to Washington, D.C. This is a project done by the Parisian-based artist Bolesław Biegas in 1906. It shows Kościuszko standing on top of a column, and we have two frantic horsemen on either side. Of course, if the model had been accepted, Biegas would have probably improved on it. But it's not the one that was picked. The committee chose 2 finalists from the 20 that had been submitted. Professor Lewandowski from Vienna and Professor Antoni Popiel from Lwów. As it turns out, the final decision was made by President Theodore Roosevelt, who chose Popiel's model as the one that would fit best in the space and best represented both Kościuszko's role in America and also back in Poland. The Polish National Alliance, which had helped organize the contest and the whole monument selection and erection, taxed its members 2 cents a month until the funds were raised for the statue. In May of 1910, they held a large dedication ceremony in Washington, D.C., inviting people from the United States, Canada, and Europe to take part in the celebrations. The President of the United States at that time, William Howard Taft, who had been on the committee back in the early 1906, 1907, was now at the dedication. He addressed the audience, praising both Kościuszko as a hero of 2 countries, and also saying that the Poles who were living in America were also contributing their part in the growth of the United States. The dedication was followed by a large parade where many of the Polish organizations took part, the Falcons and very many Polish paramilitary organizations. After the dedication of both the Kościuszko statue and the Pulaski statue, which was further on Pennsylvania Avenue, the P&A organized a 3-day conference to talk about the Polish situation and the struggles for Polish independence. And remember that World War I only broke out 4 years later. So already the Polish community was primed for fighting and working on behalf of Poland. The statue, in a prime location next to the White House, has been visited by Polish delegations and Polish American delegations over the years. In fact, the first statue dedicated to Kościuszko in Warsaw is an exact copy of the Popiel statue from Washington, D.C. It was put up in front of the Lubomirski Palace in Warsaw. On June 2nd, 2020, the statue was vandalized along with many other statues in Washington, D.C. and throughout the country. Fortunately, it is not damaged to a large extent, but just vandalized with spray paint. And the National Park Service and other groups have tried to repair and fix the damage. We don't know why the statue was taken to be damaged, because the role of Kościuszko in the securing of African Americans from slavery should be known by all Americans.